The discovery. When the stars went dark. The collective had existed for 12,000 cycles. Across 47 star systems, over 200 species lived in perfect harmony. They shared knowledge freely. They communicated through the neural link, a vast network that connected every mind in the galaxy. Thoughts flowed like water between worlds. Privacy was an ancient concept, forgotten and unnecessary. Observer Catherine floated in her meditation chamber aboard the Watchtower station. Her crystalline body pulsed with soft purple light as she monitored the link. Millions of thoughts passed through her awareness every moment. Joy from a birth on Borton Prime. Curiosity from scientists studying a new nebula. Contentment from farmers harvesting crops on the agriculture worlds. Then something changed. A void appeared in the link. Not empty space, which simply showed as darkness. This was different. This was absence. A hole where something should exist but didn't. Catherine's light flickered with alarm. In 12,000 cycles, nothing had ever blocked the neural link. It connected all life in the collective. To be outside the link meant to not exist. Yet something existed in that void. Something was there, but it refused to join the chorus of shared minds. Report to High Council immediately, Catherine sent through the link. Unknown phenomenon detected in Sector 847. The response came instantly from thousands of minds. Investigating. Stand by. The ships that whispered. 3 days later, a fleet of collective vessels arrived at the coordinates. 20 ships, each containing observers from different species. They approached the void carefully, cautiously, like one might approach a wounded animal. What they found made no sense. 7 ships hung in space near a yellow star. The vessels were strange. Made of metal, actual solid metal, not the living biocrystal that collective ships grew from. They had angular shapes, sharp edges, flat surfaces. Primitive chemical engines jutted from their backs. No energy shields protected them, only thick armor plating. But that wasn't the strange part. The strange part was that the ships existed in complete silence. Can anyone read them? Catherine asked through the link. Negative, came the reply from Observer Tarn. There are life signs aboard. Complex neural patterns. But they're contained. Locked inside individual bodies. That's impossible, Catherine responded. All intelligent life connects to the link automatically. It's a fundamental law of consciousness. Not these beings. They're completely isolated. Each mind is trapped in its own skull. The word sent a ripple of horror through the collective observers. Skull. A bone cage that imprisoned thoughts. How could any species evolve intelligence while locked in such isolation? Catherine moved her ship closer. Her sensors probed the strange vessels. Inside, she detected approximately 3,000 individual life forms. Each one was separate. Alone. Their thoughts bounced around inside their heads with nowhere to go. It must be agony, she thought. To be so utterly alone with your own mind. Attempt standard greetings, ordered High Observer Velnik through the link. If they cannot hear us through the link, perhaps they have other communication methods. The collective ships broadcast on every known frequency. Mathematical sequences. Prime numbers. Visual patterns. Chemical signals. Everything they could think of to say, we are here. We are friendly. We want to communicate. The human ships, for that was what they called themselves, the collective learned later, remained silent for exactly 17 minutes. Then one of the human vessels fired its engines and moved forward. Words spoken aloud. The human ship stopped a safe distance from Catherine's vessel. From its hull emerged a small pod. It floated through space toward the collective ship, carrying a single human inside. They want to meet, Catherine said through the link. Face to face. Individual to individual. How primitive, someone observed. How inefficient. But they agreed. Observer Tarn, whose species could survive the same atmospheric conditions as the humans, entered his own pod and moved to meet them. The two pods connected. Airlocks opened. Tarn found himself in a small chamber with the human. She was a small creature. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head on top. Skin covered in cloth. Eyes that moved independently, focusing on Tarn with unsettling intensity. And inside that head, behind those eyes, was a mind completely cut off from everything else. Tarn reached out with his consciousness, trying to touch her thoughts as he would with any other being. Nothing. It was like reaching for water and grasping only air. The human's mouth opened. Vibrations came from her throat. Sound waves. She was using sound waves to communicate. Like a primitive animal. Tarn's translator analyzed the patterns. Slowly, meanings emerged. I am Commander Sarah Chen, the vibrations said. Representing the United Earth Confederacy. We come in peace. I am Tarn, he replied, his own translator converting his thoughts into the clumsy sound language. Why can you not hear us? Why do you hide from the link? The human's face changed expression, another primitive form of communication. Her features arranged themselves in a pattern Tarn would later learn meant confusion. What link? We haven't detected any signals from your ships except the standard radio broadcasts. Not signals. Thoughts. Consciousness. The neural link connects all minds in the galaxy. The human was silent for a moment. Her eyes widened slightly. Another expression. Fear? Surprise? You're telepathic? She asked. All of you? Of course. How else would intelligent beings communicate? Sarah Chen took a step backward. Her hand moved to a device on her belt. Not a weapon, Tarn realized. Something else. Something she gripped for comfort. Commander Tarn, she said slowly. Humans are not telepathic. Our thoughts are private. They stay inside our own heads. And we prefer it that way. Through the link, Tarn shared this information with every observer present. The response was immediate and universal: shock. A species that chose isolation. A species that wanted to keep its thoughts locked away. It defied everything they understood about intelligence, about consciousness, about civilization itself. But how do you cooperate? Tarn asked. How do you share knowledge? How do you understand each other? The human's expression changed again. This time, to something that looked almost like pity. We talk, she said. We write. We create art and music. We look into each other's eyes and try to guess what the other person is feeling. We get it wrong sometimes. We misunderstand. We argue. But those thoughts, those private thoughts, they belong to us alone. Tarn felt something he had never experienced before. A feeling that came from being confronted with something so alien, so incomprehensible, that his mind struggled to process it. These humans had built ships. They had crossed the stars. They had created technology and civilization. And they had done it all while completely alone inside their own heads. I need to report this, Tarn said through the link to his fellow observers. We have encountered something unprecedented. A species that has developed intelligence without the link. They are all alone. Every single one of them. And they think this is normal. The discussion that followed lasted hours. Meanwhile, in that small chamber, Tarn and Sarah Chen continued their halting, awkward conversation. Speaking out loud. Trying to understand each other without the benefit of shared thoughts. It was slow. It was imprecise. It was frustrating. And Tarn began to realize something that terrified him. These humans had learned to survive without the one thing the collective believed was essential to intelligent life. What else might they have learned in their isolation? The question. What privacy means. The meeting between the collective and humanity lasted 3 weeks. Diplomatic teams from both sides gathered aboard a neutral station built hastily in the space between their fleets. The collective observers found the experience exhausting. To communicate with humans, they had to disconnect from the link. They had to exist, however briefly, in the same isolated state the humans lived in constantly. It was horrifying. Observer Catherine volunteered to spend an entire day disconnected from the link. She wanted to understand what human existence felt like. The moment the connection severed, panic seized her. Her thoughts echoed in her own head with nowhere to go. She reached out instinctively to share her fear with others, but found only emptiness. Is this what they live with? She wondered. This terrible loneliness? But as the hours passed, something strange happened. The panic faded. In its place came something Catherine had never experienced before: quiet. Her thoughts were her own. No one else's emotions colored them. No one else's opinions influenced them. She could think something without immediately knowing what thousands of others thought about it. It was peaceful. When she reconnected to the link at day's end, the flood of other minds felt overwhelming. Too much. Too loud. For the first time in her life, Catherine understood why someone might choose to keep their thoughts private. The collective debates. They are a threat, High Observer Velnik declared to the assembled council. His thoughts carried the weight of authority and the support of billions of minds behind him. They exist outside our understanding. Outside our control. We cannot predict them because we cannot read them. They have done nothing hostile, Catherine argued back. Her thoughts rippled with the conviction she'd gained from her day of isolation. They simply wish to remain as they are. That is the problem. Velnik's crystalline body flashed red with agitation. Every species in the collective joins the link willingly. It is the foundation of our peace. We share everything. There are no secrets, no lies, no misunderstandings. But these humans. He paused, his thoughts darkening. These humans keep secrets. They hide their true intentions. How can we trust beings whose minds we cannot touch? The debate spread through the link like wildfire. Trillions of minds across 47 star systems discussed the human question. Most agreed with Velnik. The humans were dangerous because they were unknowable. But a small group, led by Catherine, saw something different. Perhaps, Catherine suggested to the council, we are the ones who need to change. For 12,000 cycles, we have existed in harmony because we forced everyone to share everything. But the humans show us another way. They cooperate without the link. They build civilizations without reading each other's minds. Maybe we've forgotten what it means to truly trust someone. Trust? Velnik's thoughts carried contempt. Trust is unnecessary when you can simply know what another thinks. Is it? Catherine challenged. Or have we simply created a galaxy where trust is impossible because verification is always available? The question silenced the council. Through the link, Catherine felt the cascade of thoughts as millions of minds considered her words. She had touched something fundamental, something that made many uncomfortable. The human perspective. Meanwhile, aboard the human diplomatic vessel, Commander Sarah Chen sat across from her science officer, Dr. Marcus Webb. They want us to join their neural link, she said, pulling up the latest communication. They say it's the only way we can truly be part of the galactic community. Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression troubled. And if we refuse? They haven't said explicitly, but the implication is clear. We'll remain outsiders. Cut off from their technology, their trade networks, their knowledge base. Can't blame them for being cautious, Marcus observed. Imagine their perspective. Every species they've ever met thinks out loud, and suddenly here we are, keeping our thoughts locked up tight. We must seem paranoid to them. Sarah smiled slightly. Maybe we are paranoid. Our entire history is full of lies, deceptions, secrets. We've fought wars over misunderstandings. We've built entire governments around the concept of classified information. You're saying we're the weird ones? I'm saying we're different. And different isn't necessarily bad. Marcus stood and walked to the viewport. Beyond the reinforced glass, the collective ships floated like a field of luminous jellyfish, beautiful and alien. What if they're right though? What if all our problems, war, distress, inequality, what if it all comes from our inability to truly understand each other? The link could solve that. At what cost? Sarah joined him at the window. Marcus, I've read the reports. When collective species disagree, the majority opinion simply overwhelms the minority through the link. There's no room for dissent. No space for individual thought. Everyone thinks what everyone else thinks. Sounds peaceful. Sounds like drowning. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the alien ships. So what do we do? Marcus finally asked. Sarah's reflection in the glass showed determination. We show them why privacy matters. Why individual thought matters. Why the ability to keep secrets isn't a bug in human nature, it's a feature. The demonstration. 3 days later, Sarah Chen stood before the collective council in a specially constructed chamber. Around her, hundreds of observers from dozens of species watched through the link and through their eyes. Billions more observed remotely. You asked us why we choose isolation, Sarah began. Why we refuse to join the neural link. Let me show you. She activated a holographic display. It showed human history, but not the wars and violence the collective expected. Instead, it showed something else. A human child keeping a gift secret to surprise her mother. A scientist working alone for years on a theory everyone else thought was crazy. A dissident hiding revolutionary ideas from an oppressive government. An artist creating something personal, something that existed in their mind alone before they chose to share it with the world. These moments, Sarah said, require privacy. They require the ability to think thoughts that no one else agrees with. To imagine possibilities that seem impossible. To rebel against the consensus. She brought up another image. The collective's history. 12,000 cycles of perfect harmony. No wars. No conflicts. But also, no surprises. No revolutions. No dramatic breakthroughs. Slow, steady progress driven by collective agreement. Your civilization is ancient and wise, Sarah continued. But when was the last time someone in the collective had an idea that everyone else thought was crazy? When did someone last rebel against the shared consensus and prove everyone wrong? Through the link, Catherine felt the observers stirring. They were uncomfortable. Sarah had identified something they'd never questioned. Innovation, Sarah said, requires the ability to be wrong privately. To experiment with ideas that seem foolish. To protect half-formed thoughts from the judgment of others until they're ready. Your link is beautiful and powerful, but it makes everyone think alike. And when everyone thinks alike, how do you grow? Delnick's thoughts cut through the murmur. You speak of growth through discord. Through conflict. Through the pain of misunderstanding. We eliminated those things. That was our achievement. You eliminated the bad, Sarah agreed. But you also eliminated the good. The surprise of discovering what someone really thinks. The joy of being understood despite the difficulty. The trust that comes from choosing to share rather than being forced to share. She took a breath. We humans hurt each other sometimes with our secrets. We lie. We hide. We misunderstand. But we also surprise each other. We inspire each other. We create things that no one else expected because we had the space to imagine them alone first. Catherine projected her thoughts to Sarah, a courtesy the collective had learned, broadcasting so the human could hear. You are saying that loneliness makes you stronger? I'm saying that individuality makes us human. And maybe the galaxy needs a species that thinks differently. That keeps some thoughts private. That can surprise you. The council chamber fell silent. Through the link, a conversation exploded across the collective. Trillions of minds debating, discussing, disagreeing in ways they rarely did. Finally, Delnick spoke. What you ask is unprecedented. To remain outside the link. To be part of our community but separate from our unity. It disturbs the foundation of everything we are. I know, Sarah said quietly. And I'm sorry for that. But we can't change what we are. And honestly? We don't want to. The decision. The collective debated for 6 days. The longest debate in their recorded history. Through the link, arguments flowed back and forth. Fear of the unknown. Curiosity about difference. Concern for harmony. Hope for something new. In the end, a consensus emerged, barely. Catherine delivered the decision to Saracen personally. The collective has agreed to accept humanity as we are, Catherine said. You may remain outside the link. You will be the first species in 12,000 cycles to join our community while maintaining your privacy. Sarah felt relief flood through her. Thank you. But understand, Catherine continued, you are our experiment. A test to see if unity and individuality can coexist. Many in the collective fear you. They think you will bring conflict, secrets, and pain back into our perfect harmony. They might be right, Sarah admitted. We're not perfect. We'll probably mess up. We'll definitely surprise you, not always in good ways. Catherine's body pulsed with what Sarah had learned to recognize as humor. Yes. And that is exactly why we need you. We've been thinking the same thoughts for thousands of cycles. Maybe it's time someone showed us something new. She extended one crystalline appendage. Sarah recognized the gesture. The collective had been practicing human customs. She reached out and shook Catherine's hand. Welcome to the collective, humanity, Catherine said. You strange, private, wonderful mysteries. Sarah smiled. Glad to be here. I think. Above them, the human fleet and the collective armada began the slow dance of integration. Two civilizations, completely different, learning to exist side by side. One that shared everything. One that kept some things locked away. And in the space between them, something new was being born. Something that had never existed before. A harmony built not on forced unity, but on chosen trust. On the understanding that sometimes the most important thoughts are the ones we keep to ourselves. On the belief that difference, even uncomfortable difference, makes everyone stronger. The stars watched in silence as humanity taught the galaxy an old truth they'd forgotten, that being alone together is sometimes better than being together alone.